Well, now that we're ready, we're about to announce our next panel, and therefore we have 3 people joining the stage with Michael. And we're happy to have Andreas here. Andreas is the co-founder and CEO of Cropster, and during his work, he was also led to Colombia, where he was actually helping small farmers with the ideas he had and doing some research and development. And as he is a software developer, of course, when this project came to end in 2007, he did not stop there, and he founded Cropster. The second person being up here on stage is Christian. Christian is the CEO of Fabscale, and before he joined Fabscale, he had many different managing roles at different software companies, oh wonder, and he was also counseling the high-tech startups. Most recently, he founded an e-commerce platform, and he will be speaking also together here upstage with Marko. Marko is doing the Artisan software, and just recently he came up with a project that actually is about to find out how much energy the roasting on a certain roasting machine would consume. Because everybody just said, oh yeah, I am less using energy than the others, but nobody actually could really put it in numbers. And this is actually what he is to do in the next time. So we're also looking forward to this. So these are the 3 guys we will see up next here on stage.
Welcome. Let's go. Welcome. I'll be here. Welcome. Hey. I don't. A little. Wow. How you feeling?
Good. I can't see anybody, actually.
I thought the same. It's much less scary from here.
Yeah, we already had a kind of a panel discussion last night in the restaurant where we had beers and spoke for 2 hours. So
and you said there will be only 3 questions, right?
Only 3 questions, but no beer for this time. We'll leave that for the evening.
Cool.
So today we're going to talk about smart data, software, and the opportunities we see for its integration in the coffee industry, the future. For the beginning, I'd love to start with a question for each of you, because you're in a very interesting position, because you are coffee professionals, but you're also a computer science professionals. And an obvious question for a coffee professional would be, do you remember your first cup of coffee? How was it? How was the experience? But the question I have for you is, if you remember your first computer that you had as a kid or a young adult, how was the feeling to be sitting in front of a computer, and what did you do?
I think it was the beginning of primary school, and we had a computer from a manufacturer called Schneider, which made basically a screen with keyboard, and on the screen you had 2 slots for a floppy drive, and the screen was this green-yellow gradient. And you had 1 floppy to boot operating system. Then when it was booted, you put it out and you put in then the next program.
Sure.
And we had a number program software, and we had a text. And when I got the computer, I was really curious, and I started typing stuff. And we had this printer, a needle printer with endless paper. And endless is actually a very fascinating thing. And one day I remember I figured out, and that's 10 years later I learned about that's ASCII art. So I was basically, with different letters and signs, I tried to make art. So I pressed a lot of 1s and 0s and other stuff to create an image. But the screen wasn't so large, so you didn't have a lot of things on it, right? So not so many letters. But I remember that the friend was over, and we tried to draw a naked person. And Then the thing is, needle printers were endless in paper, but also they took endless time to print. And my mom came home, and we were like, oh God, we have to shut this down. But the thing is, we couldn't because the printer was just going on. In the end, she didn't come into the room, but it was 10 minutes of horror. And yeah, I didn't stop using computers afterwards, actually. But that was roughly my first real interaction.
Good start. Good start in the industry.
Yeah.
Marko, Christian?
Yeah, for me, so I'm a bit older. I didn't have initially my own computer. So we went as youngsters to a shopping center where they were on display, basically. And we started to program on those. So actually, we started immediately programming on those games. Basically, we couldn't afford games anyhow, and we didn't have a computer. We just were programming them, and then because you have only a limited time until the clerk comes and puts you away from the machine. So we had then, they were not floppy disks, we had cassette tapes. So we putting the cassette in and quickly saving it to the cassette and hoping that we could reload it on the next day and continue to finish the program. So that was the first thing. It was the computer was a Sinclair from UK, Sinclair SETI Spectrum. It had color already. So I remember it was a TV screen. So it was a colored TV screen, and it took a year at least or two until I could afford my own, and I never stopped programming. Basically,
there was no mom experience that you had.
No, I didn't have a printer. Sorry.
It's one way of solving it. Yes. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I have an older brother. He's 6 years older than me, and he was always into informatics from the beginning. He's really kind of a geek. And I always got the old stuff from him. So I always got the really bad computers. So I started really early, because he wasn't even looking for computers, but already got one because he had to get rid of it. And so it was obvious he was giving all to me. But I remember the first one I used was again, his Commodore 64 with cassette drive and black and white monitor. And I'm feeling so old right now having this. This was just his. And then the first one I got from him, it was a Windows 3.11, I remember, from the operating system. And just to install the simple thing, you had like 12 disks, yeah, so it started there. So, but then also I kept the passion grew a little bit for computers over time. Then from there, from
yeah, that was the ritual part of it, like to do all kinds of surrounding activities to turn
and
it
also
on.
no printer. So
no printer for you.
No.
I pity you.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little jealous about you.
So if we move back to today. I would love to ask each of you, with your work, you solve problems for your users, your customers, through technology. So I'd love to ask you what kind of problems you solve with technology and how.
Okay.
Should I?
Well, we as Cropster, we make a software platform, and we have specialized solutions for roasters, for coffee shops, and coffee farmers. And we try to build a vertical integration from the field to the cup. And why we do that? We want to help every company that uses our software to solve a few problems, and that is product consistency and base product. And that can be fermentation or roasting or brewing. So we help to control quality and achieve better quality. We help them to become more efficient. I think that's where software can easily do, with warehousing, production planning, order aggregation, and a lot of that stuff. And in the end, we connect those endpoints, and we will help, and that's the future, and that's where we want to go. We want to connect these companies in a way that they can collaborate together in a way that to improve their quality, which alone they cannot control. And I think that's especially important for coffee, because coffee is so complex, and it's so many touches. And in the end, it's about a good cup of coffee. It's in a very simplified value that we give to consumers, but we have to do it right, and so many hands touch it and machines touch it, and they are spread across the world. And I think a software platform can help bring that together and make it better in a way that the industry has an efficiency and a profitability gain in the future and is sustainable in itself, making a cup of coffee. Sorry, that was complicated.
No, I mean, it's good to reiterate the end goal. Like, at the end of the day, we all...
But that's what we want to do, and that's where we invest our time in.
Great, thank you.
So I want to start with that one product that Daniela mentioned in the introduction, which is about a product for a customer that doesn't know that he needs that yet. So I try to convince him that he wants to have that. Is about knowing or having a measure on the efficiency of roasting machines. So if you are in the market for a new car, you might look at the color and the size, but you might also look at the consumption indications that are written on those technical sheets, especially nowadays when the gas prices are going up. But for if you buy a roasting machine, no one is comparing the consumption of these roasting machines. I'm really amazed. These machines are really expensive, and you run them 10, 20 years, and no one really asks the vendors for the consumption. Something like how many kilowatts does it consumes per kilo to roast a kilo of green coffee. So there are no there are some numbers, some strange numbers, but nothing you really can compare in a serious way. And so I got this idea last summer that this is a missing thing, and I thought about missing things. So, maybe I could do something about that. So I thought, who should do that? Because I don't think that Probat would just come up with a measure and then put that on a sheet of paper, and everybody would believe them that this is a universal good way to measure that. So it has to be an agreed process, basically. And so I thought, who could do that? And I thought, it's probably me not to define that, but to get that started and manage that. And this is what I did last summer, to invite companies like Probat, Gießen, and a lot of others, some experts like Scott Rao and others, to think about how such a protocol could look like, how that should have to be defined. And so basically I came up with this norm roast protocol, which is now there. Might not be the best result or best way to do that, but it's a way that is agreed with a significant part of the industry, at least.
Yep.
And now I'm hoping that it's getting useful. I'm waiting for the customers to ask the vendors for the gnome roast results. So that is one thing that I'm doing. I'm also doing this open source Artisan software, which it's not really a platform. It runs locally on your computer, but it's available for free. That's a thing. So it has a really large user base by now. And I added one thing which is connected to sustainability and also to the norm roast consumption. So for energy consumption, you have two variables basically to optimize. So one is have an efficient roasting machine, and the other one is to have to roast in a certain way that is efficient, let's say. So the process yourself are doing, and so we heard something about the virtual profile from Thomas that was in this to actually compute the ideal curve for a certain result with the minimum optimizing with respect to energy. That's very interesting stuff. I did something simpler in the software, a tool where you could basically get an estimate on the energy consumption per roast, computed from how you use the burner and which burner you're using, and the technical data of that burner. Basically, you configure the software with your machine, basically, and it calculates you or estimates basically the consumption of that roast, of each roast.
Gotcha.
And I think that should be in all software and on all machines. It should be displayed to the users that the user can make an informed decision how he wants to roast and how much he wants to preheat. Or the famous inter-batch protocol, where people are shutting down their burner for 10 minutes and then heating up the machine again for half an hour for the next batch, which of course has an energy tag on it.
We'll certainly get to the informed decisions part, because that's
I
where many of us fail every day.
That's the important role I think we as software guys can play to deliver somehow these decision points, or some of these decision points.
Yeah. Thank you. What about you, Christian? What problem you're solving?
We heard it already a few times this day in several talks about the importance of data. And what we want to do is we focus on the industrial coffee production, so on the bigger plants. And what we are doing is bringing data together, or extracting data from different systems, from different places, different areas, and trying to build an inclusive system that allows us to apply certain types of technologies. That then again leads to building correlations, finding patterns, starting with predictions. And I think this is just a beginning of this type of innovations that are growingly important. And I mean, this is because those technologies that allows us to do this are quite recent. So there's a few technologies that have been co-evolving over the last years, and it's like cloud computing, processing power, speed of internet connections, and all these things allow us to run different kind of analytics and processes on data, and therefore it's for my point of view, it's really important for people, for consumer, for customers. To have to start building data strategies in the company in order to be ready to exploit the data they have, to be able to extract the data they already create some way, because data is getting more and more valuable. And I think many of us don't realize yet how important this is going to be over the next 10 to 15 years. And there's a reason why we're talking about the fourth kind of industrial revolution, digital transformation, which is basically a combination of software tools or technical tools that apply together. And yeah, I mean, the importance is going to grow massively. And so this is exactly what we want to do with Fabscale, is to build an inclusive system where we are ready to apply all kind of technologies, and where we also give the data, all the data that we get, also we give them back through an API in order to use the data also for other systems, and again apply whatever technologies we have now and are going to be upcoming over the next few years.
Yep. And you at Fabscale understand this very well, that the roasting part is important and it's at the core, but the whole surrounding operations, that's where the magic happens. Like especially if you're a big company and you roast tons of coffee every day, you need to nail each part of the process in the in your factory, because otherwise you produce a lot of waste.
Exactly, that also.
We talked a lot about data already. You've mentioned data many times in your replies, and we've heard the term big data and smart data in a couple of preceding presentations. So the question I have for you is, if we speak about smart data, what makes data smart?
I have a very simple definition, and it's creating value out of data.
Creating value out of data.
Creating value out of data.
Okay.
This is a very simplified explanation of what it is. But it's, again, we are moving from creating data, having big data or big amounts of data, towards really creating value from data. Mm-hmm. And this is by applying technologies, different technologies, and this is smart data to me. So I mean, there's for sure more precise definitions than this, but and I think there's many different definitions. But in a simplified way, for me, it's always data that creates automatically value for you, for your company, and makes you improve what you do.
I would agree to that, actually, but there are some preconditions to make this data valuable, so to speak. And one is maybe that you need all these bits and bytes. You need to have an idea how to interpret that. So the data needs to be structured in a certain way that is understandable. In the best way, this is what these computer scientists usually do. They standardize the representation of data, so that you define a meaning to certain numbers. This is a color, this is a temperature, and this is the range, data range of that number. And I see a little bit a lack of standardization in data for the coffee processing. So that just my position. So there are individual islands that can process data somehow when you know where the data comes from and you know exactly what, but you would have more profit if you could integrate systems, because the data is standardized and the data could flow between a Cropster system and a Fabscale system and maybe a farm which is producing some data, but for that one needs to agree on some formats to how to represent that, and there's still a lot of work to do. I see.
Yeah. I think the term smart data, I think comes down to what the guy said. I don't remember who made that pyramid, but there is this pyramid for information technology that basically says you have data and everything is data. You can describe any physical thing as data too. But the moment you can understand it, that means you can read it, you can see a color, you can read a temperature, whatever. At that point, it's information. And information teaches you over time, and that builds knowledge. And that's basically, I think, where if you think about smart data and it's correct data with the right sample size and it's clean, I think it's much better data, because at the moment you understand a pattern in it and you can see a pattern, that's then information, and with that you can work. And that's the point where software often has to do, because we can gather endless amounts of data, but we need to filter out and represent it in a way that is usable. I mean, that's then down to usability, but it's also understanding the data in the right way, and it's being able to make actions out of that.
And, absolutely agree, and the more data we create and the more information we create, the higher gets the complexity of understanding data and taking decisions based on data, given the complexity. Yeah.
And that's one thing. For example, we have a team that focuses on AI only and machine learning stuff. And with that, we were able to predict inventory levels when you need to get your next shipment. We can filter out brews from espresso machines, from flushes, and we can predict roast in real time for the next 120 seconds. We can see if that will flick, and if you like a flick or not is your decision. But that's possible. That's possible in first because there is so much data. But AI can help us to bring it down to a single parameter or a single small chart that, again, helps us interpreting all that data and use it in a way, and that's probably the smart data again. You get information out of that amount and you can do something, and that's where IT systems come in. They can break it down and summarize again. And that's what we need to use, I think.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to draw conclusions out of the data you have. Data is not the answer, it's the starting point for the informed decision making. That's
the purpose of the tool.
Yeah.
In the discussion yesterday, you also mentioned we discussed also about can we trust the data, or what about errors
in the era of misinformation,
missing information in data, and actually AI-based technology can help to discover actually inconsistencies in data or fix them in the best case, find missing data and so that. All this data processing, that's complex stuff. We also talked about costs of software and the complexity of software. It sounds in the end all simple. You have a button you click, but the processes that are underneath that makes this whole processing safe, so to speak, are rather complex.
Yeah, so if we speak about complexity, so you say it's not as easy as you write a few lines of code and that's it, and for 10 years it
that
works.
That was my hope when I studied it.
Yeah, the sweet dreams in the beginnings. Yeah.
No, it's when you write a new software piece, that's handwork, right? It's just handwork. There is no machine doing that. And there is an average, I think, there is one software bug in every 100 lines of code, or even
At
less.
least.
So, and
more in my code.
yeah. and then you have millions of lines of code in your software, and you use the operating system that has more, and then it goes down to the hardware. So you have a pile of bugs in the end, which is an error. And then you have all those different screens, and with mobile phones, you get a lot of updates, and that's all outside of your control. If you write software, you get Android updates, iOS updates, new screen size here, bug in that processor there. You get a bug in the Korean keyboard layout of macOS. Really happened. It killed all our software one day in the morning. That just happens all the time, and that's constant. And if you look at standard industry measures, so we have to calculate, from the time that we build it, we have to take 30% out of that, and we will reinvest that 30% every year after that into the same thing.
Mm-hmm. To keep it running.
To keep it running and alive. That doesn't mean we rebuild it or we make it new, but that's on average what we need to reinvest. And that means building software, the version 1 is very cheap and it's very fast. And you can easily fail and reiterate. But maintaining it is very expensive, and you really have to figure out how to manage that, because that can basically kill a project. And there are many that actually were killed by that.
If we focus on sustainability now, could you name any industries, could be within agriculture or also outside of agriculture, that address the sustainability issues well and effectively with technology and digitalization? Industries you get inspirations from?
I learned about the use of AI with weather data, soil data, and how plants look actually. So how are they growing? And you can build recommendation systems that help to fertilize correctly, and that has a very big impact. So first, fertilizer is very costly and uses a lot of energy to make. But if you over-fertilize, you damage your ecosystem, and if you under-fertilize, you damage your yield. So fertilizing the right amount is the only thing that will keep you, you will still have fields that can produce in a decade or so. And a software can help with that. And that's a very crucial real-time application that is being used today for corn and wheat and potatoes and other staple crops that feed us, or are the main feeding elements. And I think there it can help. A friend of mine runs a startup, and they have a sensor that they put into the stomach of a cow. And they basically monitor specific gases in there. And that highly correlates with diseases.
That's smart
and that
data.
actually helps to bring down antibiotic use in cattle breeding. And so there is these things, and I find that fascinating, because there is tons and tons of ideas going on, and we are implementing them, and they are never on the front page of any newspaper. But I think they have huge impact. And I think, there is a lot of applications.
I really like about the coffee industry that it's so diverse in terms that there are many people that are coming into coffee with a variety of different backgrounds, from finance to computer science, biology. They all meet in coffee and bring their expertise to it. So I'm curious if you, Marko, Christian, if you have any other industries you look up to with inspiration.
Not thinking about some specific industry, but I mean, going back to what Andreas just said, software can obviously be or is a major help against for sustainability. I mean, but it's not a solution by itself. So it always needs other development, hardware or other technologies in addition to be really effective. So also our system can help you reduce waste, reduce energy consumption, resource, whatever, but to a certain point. And after that, there really needs to be different technologies that are going to bring us a step further towards, or for the fight against climate change, or for sustainability. Yeah.
I have not a really good example. Maybe interesting for Probat is for the machine producers is this idea to maintain machines over a longer period and potentially upcycle machines. In Probat, I just learned that you can replace the burner unit of some of your machines, the gas burner with a hydrogen burner. So keep the whole machine, but just replace this one unit, which is an excellent example for that. And I was involved in a project together in the gas industry, gas turbines industry, where they have the gas turbines sold to the customers worldwide, and they have a kind of an exact idea of what they deliver to the customer and how that machine developed over time. So they have what they call a digital twin of that machine to know exactly that we replace that part for that part. And maybe Probat needs something like that too in the future, when they upgrade the burner to a hydrogen burner and then upgrade another part, then the variety of machines that you have to support is getting wider. And to support something like this, you need a lot of data actually. So that's not process data, but that's data on the installation, and that is in a way helping you to be more sustainable. You don't need to replace the whole machine, which is very expensive for these gas turbines, but you know exactly which parts are running in the turbine in Russia there, which is actually working pretty fine. So it was actually about these gas turbines.
That's a very good example.
Very interesting, because these are highly complex machines, a little bit more complex than roasting machines, but interesting. I think that we need to come to this point where we don't produce just new stuff, but maintain old stuff, and software can help there.
Here. If we now speak about the future, so we started with your past and your first experiences with your computers. We spoke about the present, and if we now talk about the future, and if you look at, for example, the next 2 decades, what problems you see in the coffee industry in regards to sustainability that we can solve with the help of software that we are not solving yet, or in terms of digitalization, what can be digitalized, but it's not digitalized today?
I talked about the sustainability with the energy consumption of these machines. That is one part. About the digitalization, I wonder if we can manage to basically have really data formats from the farm basically to the end customer mainly. So currently we have also a platform online where we get some data on these coffees for our customers from coffee distributors, basically green coffee sellers. But they type that kind of in some format, and each of these partners has different format for essentially the same data, and we just integrate that. But it would be so much stronger if the data would come from the producer directly, and maybe on transport there is a CO2 tag added for the CO2 spent on transportation, and then I don't know, you can extend that data set over the lifetime until it ends up to the customer.
Right.
So you know that would be, it's quite achievable, I would say. It's from the IT standpoint should be possible. It's again maybe a problem of standardization, so to agree on some formats. And I don't see exactly which entity in this coffee business would be responsible. I mean, there are some associations. I'm not sure what they are working on, but obviously not on those interesting things. So that is one thing I could say.
I think there are some other areas that will happen to the coffee industry, and one thing will be that we will have more shortage of labor, and that's true for any major consuming country in the world, and that's also true in some Latin American countries. So we have a shortage of labor, and we have increased labor cost also at origin. And to keep our industry sustainable, we need to finance that. But it means also we need to automate more things that are currently on paper and spreadsheets and whatnot into systems that make that for us. Because we still need to serve, we have to serve coffee, and we need to find customers and buy coffee and stuff and make coffee roasted. I believe software can help with automated processes.
I think for roasting, I see in 5 years, in the time frame of 5 years, we can roast reliable, fully automatic. But
if you then look at origin,
just for the roasting, sure. But there are a lot more processes.
But you have the same pressures at origin.
Yeah.
Plus, the big pressure is then climate change, and that will change the growing areas and will have an impact on production and all of that and all the lives attached to farming coffee. Systems can also help there, again, with fertilizer, control harvest, get more yield, have less over-fermented stuff, under-fermented stuff, and. Systems, software can help with that. They can automate things. They can get more yield out of your harvest. And I think there is a benefit for the whole supply chain in that, doing that, looking at what we waste in every step.
Yep.
Also in a coffee shop, for example. If we kick out the gram of the basket, that's a few percent.
It adds
if
up.
you add it up.
And
then I just think, wow, we maybe waste 5% there in the last step of the supply chain.
Yep.
And that should not be necessary, probably. And
especially not in the last step.
But I think systems can help with that. Machines can help with that. Training and education can help with that. And that's a multi-effort in all of these areas. And of course, software can come in as a standardization thing, an optimization thing, and support it.
Yep, agreed.
So there's cool stuff to do.
That's good to hear. Christian, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, same is true on a plant level. There's a lot of opportunity to transparency, to understand better where there is waste, or where you can save energy, where you can compare recipes on one roaster to another, or where you can reduce the impact you have, combined with what Andreas said. But again, it goes up to a certain point where software can help. It can be a massive help, but after that, we're going to need other technologies as well to be combined with it to really change the game.
Yep.
I think it's never only software. It's always software supporting a process or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or some hardware.
Yeah, if you hear questions like, is the future artificial intelligence or is the future human? It's not an either-or question. The answer is both.
Sure. The answer is both, and the other thing is
hopefully, actually, yes.
Hopefully.
We also have some apocalyptic movies.
Yeah, that's in a short or in a long term. That we have to see, that this is also that again, technology is only a part, and in order to have technology working, you need people. And implementing technology and in every way in companies that are process related always require a social acceptance from the people. And I don't know the split, but it might be software might be only the 30% of the effort, and then the 70% is really to have the people on board and to have the understanding and to make out the best out of this of the innovation of the change.
Well, gentlemen, I'm quite sure we'll continue this conversation over barbecue tonight. So everyone is free to join us. In the beginning, we spoke about smart data, and we all agree that it's not the answer, but it's the starting point. It's for you to make the decisions based on it. And software is the same. Like you hear blockchain, big data, all of these fancy terms. It's big meetings, but those are just tools. Those are just tools. Software is here to help us to do good work and to improve things. So it's at the end of the day, it's still up to us to use it for good. So thank you very much for a fruitful conversation. Thank you for the audience for being here with us. Please round of big applause for the panel.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Thank you.